The streets of Washington were quieter than usual, too quiet. Cafes near Capitol Hill sat half empty, their regulars missing. Government buildings loomed in silence. The nation's capital felt frozen in time, and yet the tension in the air was electric. It was October 2025. The clock had struck midnight. The U.S. government had officially shut down. This wasn't the first shutdown in American history, but it was the most unpredictable, the most dangerous, and the most politically explosive one yet. Because this time, it wasn't just about budgets or policies, it was about power. And at the center of it all stood one man, Donald J. Trump. As the news broke across the country, TV screens lit up with chaos. The U.S. government shuts down indefinitely, blared one headline. Another read. Millions of workers face uncertainty. But beneath the surface, something deeper was unfolding. A strategic move that many called Trump's boldest gamble yet. Inside the White House, aides whispered that Trump had grown frustrated with what he called the deep state bureaucracy and wasteful spending. He believed Washington needed a reset, a forced reboot, even if it meant shutting everything down. He wanted control. He wanted leverage. He wanted to prove that the system couldn't survive without him steering it. In the halls of Congress, anger exploded. Lawmakers shouted, fingers pointed, and accusations flew like sparks. Democrats blamed Trump for deliberately letting the shutdown happen to pressure them into cutting social programs. Republicans argued it was the Democrats who refused to fund border security and national priorities. But no matter who was blamed, the people were the ones paying the price. Day 1 turned into Day 5, then Day 10. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers sat at home, uncertain if they'd ever see their next paycheck. Air traffic controllers worked long shifts without pay, terrified of missing a single instruction. National parks closed. Food programs for low-income mothers and children ran out of funding. In small towns, airports shut down as the essential air service, the program that keeps rural America connected, ran dry. Flights were canceled, shipments delayed. Markets shook, investors panicked. And still, in the Oval Office, Trump doubled down. He tweeted, "The Democrats want chaos. I want accountability. America will never be the same after this shutdown." Those words, "America will never be the same," echoed across every news network. Some called it arrogance, others called it prophecy. Meanwhile, inside his administration, something even more dramatic was happening. A secret team of advisors had been planning to use the shutdown to reshape the federal government permanently. Their proposal: freeze certain budgets indefinitely, cut billions in aid, and reroute funds toward what they called priority American initiatives. Critics warned this was a step toward authoritarian control, that Trump was using the shutdown as a weapon, not a mistake. One former official described it best: previous shutdowns were accidents of politics. This one was engineered on Capitol Hill. Democrats refused to yield. They demanded the reinstatement of healthcare subsidies, the reopening of child nutrition programs, and the return of frozen funds. But Trump's inner circle, some calling it Project 2025, saw this as their moment to dismantle what they called the bloated bureaucracy of Washington. Each day that passed, the shutdown's grip tightened. Economists warned that the U.S. could lose billions in GDP if the standoff continued. Wall Street began to tremble. American families from New York to Nebraska started skipping rent, car payments, and groceries, waiting for checks that never came. Still, Trump's approval among his loyal base rose. His supporters saw him as a fighter taking on a corrupt system. His critics saw him as a man holding a nation hostage. As week 3 began, whispers of rebellion filled the air. Federal workers staged protests in Washington, holding signs reading, "We serve the people. Let us work." Videos of emotional families went viral. Park rangers unable to feed their children. Military families skipping meals. Mothers crying outside locked daycare centers. Trump watched these reports in silence from the Oval Office, then said, "Sometimes you need to break it to rebuild it." To him, the suffering wasn't failure. It was proof that America had become too dependent on government. He believed a temporary storm was worth long-term control, but not everyone agreed. In late-night emergency sessions, Senate moderates from both parties met secretly, trying to broker a deal without White House approval. The plan: reopen essential agencies first, paychecks, food aid, transportation, and deal with the politics later. Trump, furious, called the move a betrayal. He threatened to veto any deal that reopened government without his signature demands: strict spending caps, major welfare reforms, and new executive authority over budgets. This wasn't just a funding fight anymore. It had become a battle for the future of American democracy. Reporters called it the Trump shutdown, but historians began to call it something else, the Great Power Test. Would Congress reassert its control over spending, or would the executive branch rewrite the rules forever? On the 20th day, as protests swelled across major cities and agencies began to crumble, Trump appeared on national television. He looked confident, maybe too confident. He said, "This shutdown is not chaos, it's correction. America will emerge stronger, and when we do, you'll thank me." The camera cut to the Capitol, where hundreds of protesters chanted outside in the cold. "Open the government," they yelled. "We can't survive this." The divide was total, the future uncertain. By the time the fourth week arrived, the shutdown had done what few crises ever could. It had reshaped the political landscape. Millions no longer trusted Washington. Congress was fractured, and Trump had proven once again that he could bend the system to his will. The question was, how far would it go? Would this shutdown be remembered as a short-term stunt, or the beginning of a permanent shift in American power? As the lights dimmed in offices across the Capitol, the words of one exhausted senator echoed in the night. "We've had shutdowns before, but this time it feels like the system itself is shutting down." And maybe that's what made this one different and more difficult. It wasn't about money. It was about control, conviction, and a country divided between fear and loyalty. And in that struggle, one man had turned a shutdown into the greatest power test in modern American history.